Thank you, Nikki, for the introduction. Uh, as Nikki has said, my name is Sandile Ntuli, and I work for Wild Oceans. Um, Thank you all for joining, firstly, and bearing with us for all the technical errors and problems we've just had. Thank you for waiting. And just a bit on who Wild Oceans is. We are Wild Trust, and we have two programs under there, Wildlands and Wild Oceans. So if you're searching for us, search for Wild Trust, and you'll see Wild Oceans and Wildlands. This is going to come very useful at the end because these presentations are going to be recorded, and then they're going to live in our Wild Trust YouTube page. So you just search for Wild Trust and you can see them for later viewing if you need to. And what's the deal with sharks and why do they matter? So that's the question for today. And how this presentation is structured, it's in a way that it's very dumbed down to allow everyone to sort of understand, and it caters for all different age groups. So, and that's okay.
Sandile, maybe just hold your mic there by your mouth.
Yeah, I see there's some people still talking in the background. All right. Thank you. So this is the very first in our Everything Sharks and Rays presentations. These presentations are going to be running every week on Thursday at the same time up until the 2nd of July. And then while I'm still waiting for this, yes. So before we start about why sharks are important and what's their role, maybe we should understand what sharks are. And for those scientists within us, forgive us for taking you back. But as I said, we're trying to cater for everyone. And it's very good to have a reminder of what sharks are. It's nothing lost there. So a shark is a fish, but unlike any other fish, sharks have a fully cartilage skin, cartilage skeleton rather, not skin. So other fish have bones making up their skeleton, but a shark has a cartilage, which makes it very flexible and agile to move about in the water. And some of these sharks, their cartilage may become calcified as they grow old, so making it become stronger, much like bone. And then sharks sit in a group with rays, skates, and chimeras, and they are from the class chondrichthyes. So the word chondros meaning cartilage. And under this class or chondrichthyes, there are two subgroups, so subclasses. We have elasmobranchi and holocephali. Elasmo meaning plate and branchi meaning gills. So they have gill plate. They have gill plates basically. Those are sharks and rays. And holocephali means holo meaning hollow and cephali meaning head. Those are your chimeras. So the head is fused to the body rather. So sharks respire using gills, and those gills are seen on the side of their head. So that's how you know of their body. That's how you know it's a shark, because they often get confused with rays. Some of the rays which which look like sharks. For instance, your sawfish, which are flattened, and then people think that they are sharks. But how a very easy way to distinguish is just look at the gills. If they're on the side, that's a shark. If they're underneath, that's a ray. And then another interesting fact about sharks is that they are covered in a very strong material, the very same material that makes up our bone, our teeth, which is called the shark scales basically are called shark tentacles, which then helps them protect against parasites and predators because it's that strong. You can even feel it if you brush the skin, the shark skin with your hand. It feels like sandpaper. While waiting for this thing to move on. So this is the external skeleton of the shark. You will see it's streamlined, much like a torpedo, which allows it to be flexible in the water, and it allows it eliminates or decreases the drag in the water, making it move very freely and fast. And again, if you're looking at the tail of the shark, operates much like a plane, the tail of the plane, allowing its buoyancy to move up and down in the water. And yeah, and then sharks have been around on Earth for a very long time, more than 400 million years. So, and they have survived through all of this geological time, and they have diversified over the years. Can we please all have our mics on mute? Thank you. Thank you. So they have survived through geological time, and this has allowed them to adapt so well to their environment, as you can see, for over 400 million years. So adaptation still continues. I've spoken about being torpedo-shaped and the placard scales, which are the tentacles. Another adaptation, which is very interesting, is that they are what we call counter shading. So if you look at it from the top, it seems dark, because if you're a predator looking at the water from above, water looks dark. So the dark color of the shark makes it camouflage very well from predators looking at it from the top. And for predators looking at underneath, the shark is light underneath. So much like if you're looking at the water from below looking up, you see just light. So again, camouflage. The shark is not very easy to see in the water just by the color. And again, which is another question a lot of people ask, is respiration of sharks. Do sharks sleep? So some do. A lot of them have to constantly keep moving in order to pass the water through their gills and extract the oxygen. Some sharks have developed very intuitive ways to counter that by lowering their respiration and going way under in the bottom of the ocean. And then some actually pump the water through their mouth, and then some take it through their spiracles, and others swim continuously, as I was saying. So again, sharks have very interesting senses. So they rely on a number of senses to know what's happening in their surroundings. They have a very good sense of smell. If you look at from the front, you can see two holes like nostrils. Those are not responsible for breathing, rather they're just for sense of smell. So there's a widely accepted notion that sharks can smell blood in the water. So that's how strong their sense of smell is. And their sense of sight. So their eyes are adapted to living in the marine environment. They have a tissue called the tapetum lucidum, which just reflects light back into the retina of the shark. So this sort of magnifies how much light is entering into the eye of the shark. So it's very easy for it to hunt in dark conditions. This is especially true for sharks that hunt at night. Also, they have a membrane called a nictitating membrane. So this protects the shark's eye from predators or for prey when it's launching itself during hunting. And then they also have a very good sense of hearing, but their ears are internal. So those are just responsible for low frequency vibrations to know what's going on in the environment around it. And then next slide. Bear with the presentation. Whenever I hit next slide, it takes a year and a half to pass. So they also what we call electroperception. So they are aware of the electric signals around them. Can we please have our mics on mute? Thank you. So if they can detect electric signals around them, and we know that every living thing emits an electric signal, so sharks can detect those and find where the prey are. And there's very nice documentaries on this. If you like, you can just check it out on YouTube. And then they also have what we call an ampulla of Lorenzini. So that's those are nerve endings which are allocated in the snout of the shark. So there's another notion that if you smack a shark in the nose, it would go into tonic immobility. So that's where the ampulla of Lorenzini is located. And again, it's responsible for picking up electric signals and just senses around the environment. And they also have a lateral line, so which is a line that runs along the body of the shark from the head to the tail. This is a fluid-filled sensory canals picking up vibrations in the environment. So whenever something is around it, the shark would know. And then what is also interesting is the shark reproduction. Sharks reproduce internally, which is very rare in fish. So fish lay eggs, which then the male will spray the sperm on top of the eggs externally, thus fertilizing them. But sharks have internal fertilization. So a male will latch onto the female and insert his claspers. So that's a male organ for reproduction, as you can see in the image on your left there. And then some sharks actually give birth to live young. So some sharks lay eggs, some give birth to live young. And those that lay eggs, on your far right, you can see that's a capsule, the eggs of the shark, fertilized egg. They will lay them in the reefs, in the bottom of the reefs, wrapping them around whatever substrate they can find. And once a shark has hatched from those capsules, they then wash up to shore. And you can see the picture in the middle there. That's how it washes up. And these are called now mermaid species. So a lot of people actually go on a hunt for this, and I think that's interesting. So sharks are very diverse again, both in terms of size, in terms of food, what the types of food they eat, in terms of the environments that they're living in. You can find some sharks in fresh water, a lot in the marine environment. Again, different depths. Some sharks are feed on the bottom, some sharks are actually bottom dwelling, and the distances that they travel. So sharks are very diverse. You've got sharks that can actually fit in the palm of your hand, like your lantern dwarf sharks. And then you have humongous sharks, like the whale shark, which measures up to 12 meters in length. Again, you can also see in the bottom, in the middle, in the bottom there, you can see some sharks actually look like sawfish. So hence remember my mentioning of the sawfish in the beginning. So it's very easy to get confused by this, but then if you look at the side, you can see the gills there. So that's how you know it's a shark. So this simply signifies the diversity of sharks. And this diversity has been acquired through years and years of adaptation and um, just sheer adaptation through the geological years. And this is still talking to adaptation and diversity in size. You can see the dwarf lantern shark measuring only 6 inches, while the whale shark, the biggest, measuring up to a whopping 46 feet. So, with all of that said, with all of that said, the big question is, what is the role of sharks? We know what they are now. We know their adaptation. Why are they important? So sharks sit on top of the food chain, irrespective of which environment they are, which ecosystem they are. They are the controllers. They are at the top of their uh, um, trophic level, basically. And being on the top, they keep the balance of whatever is below them. So they are responsible for keeping the ecosystem in check. They feed on organisms that are below them. And if you were to remove sharks from the ecosystem, that would mean you have, firstly, a very imbalanced ecosystem. There will be a boom of other organisms that the sharks which we're feeding on are no longer feeding on them. And those organisms will be feeding too much on the lower lying organisms. So there will be a decrease in those. The next trophic levels, which was controlled by the trophic level above them, which is now being fed on, would become so decimated by all of these imbalances. So the removal of sharks would just send the whole ecosystem into a catastrophic state, basically. So I like these illustrations. You can see on your left, you have your great white sharks, which are feeding on seals. So if you remove the great whites, the number of seals overpopulate in the water, which then destroys the fish populations and all the other organisms that are below them. You have the white tips in the middle, feeding on normal fish. You remove the white tips, fish boom, fish feeding on lower laying organisms. So there's that imbalance in the ecosystem. And then you also have your hammerheads on the left, which feed on stingrays. You remove hammerheads, the stingrays shoot up, which they feed on shellfish, and the shellfish will be decimated. And we know that shellfish are important in maintaining the nutrient balance in the ecosystem. So you can start to see the effects that removing just one type of shark has on the ecosystem. So imagine if you're removing this type of shark and then moving on to the other type. So you're creating these imbalances that are not good for the environment. But with all of that, we know the important role that sharks play now. It's not all happy out there. Sharks are under attack. Sharks are facing a lot of threats, ranging from illegal fishing. We have dedicated fisheries for sharks. We have bycatch. We have shark nets, which are true only for KZN. We have pollution from plastic pollution to heavy metal pollution. And the biggest of all, we have a dedicated, it's not even dedicated, we have finning of sharks. So we have people going out to sea, and then they're just killing sharks, and they're just killing them for their fins. And most of the times they release those sharks not even dead back into the water, which then they will die a slow, painful death. Remember that sharks need to constantly keep moving. And now if you've removed their fins, they can't swim away, but they are not dead. So they just sink to the bottom and have their gills crashing on their body and until they die. So they will suffocate to death. So our sharks are under attack, and we need to start protecting them for or to maintain all of these ecosystem functions that they provide us. We need to start thinking about what the populations are facing and how to help them. All right. So the big question I leave you with is, what can you do to help? And this is something we can discuss here. But you've already done the first step. You've joined this webinar. So the first step you can do is educate yourself as much as you can. And by just joining this webinar, you've done that. Also, this is now up for discussion within us, but I'll just throw around a couple of suggestions that we can do. Limit our fish intake and familiarize ourselves with the SASI list. So we should know where our fish is coming from, and we should start questioning things that are happening around us. With that, I would like to say thank you. And these presentations are going to be recorded, and they will live in our World Trust page. And then again, I'd like to leave the question with us. What can you do? Thank you.
Thanks to each and every one of you for joining us in this webinar. Thank you, Sandile, for taking us through all of this, even though we had technical difficulties at the beginning, but we're just glad that we worked it out. Thanks so much for joining. Please note that we will have these presentations, as Sandile has said, we will have these presentations on our YouTube channel, but actually they will be on our Shark Attack campaign website, and then that will take you through to view the YouTube video. And we will have a series of webinars. Please stay tuned to our Shark Attack campaign social media pages to find out when the next one is, so that you can sign up. So thanks so much to each and every one of you for joining.
Can I, sorry, well done, Sandile. Can I make Sandile, can you maybe just give us, not all, but give us a taster of what the series contains, so we can keep everyone excited? So some of the other topics that we can expect in the series.
Thank you, Nikki. So we have a number of topics to discuss. We have topics on tourism in the shark industry. We have topics, a dedicated topic on rays alone. So we need to know as much as we can about rays and sharks as well. But we also have topics on perceptions of people. Why are we so scared of sharks? And what can we do about that? Is our fear rightfully directed, or is it misdirected? We have that topic coming up. We have topics on shark tagging. So why do we tag sharks? Should we tag sharks? So that's a controversial one. We have topics on, I've spoken about perceptions, tourism. Yeah, so that's about it. So we have a number of topics that are just dedicated to understand. We are unpacking everything shark. We have Michelle, who is a race specialist. We have respected people like Professor Paul Cowley, who works for SIAB. We have people from tourism, Nicole Lockett from Shark Spotters. Yeah.
But don't give it all away just yet.
Yeah.
So guys, I do encourage you to ask questions. Questions can be broad, but more specifically to today's presentation, because as you've heard, there are more topics and presentations coming, which may answer your questions that you already might have lined up. And also just a note that if you happen to not be able to attend a particular webinar, or you don't get into the first 100 RSVPs because you knew it'd be so popular, as Ruth has said, these will be living on they are recorded and be living on the website, so you can catch up. But that is no excuse now to not be attending and not be coming, because there's nothing like the live show.
Right.
I think Rocco's going to be our first RSVP.
Okay. Do we have any questions? I think we still have a bit of time if there are any questions. I'm walking through the chat box.
There was one way further up, specifically about eyesight. I'm not sure how you feel about answering it right now, Sandile. You can see there's one about, oh, geez, you guys are chatting so fast, I can't see all the questions.
Me too. Let me walk through. So, a lot of well done.
So Rocco, I think Rocco asked a question around whether sharks can see color.
Not color per se. They're good in yellow. It says my internet is unstable. So can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I think somebody also replied to and answered his question, and so if the chat is moving very quickly.
Yeah, it is. Not so much.
Yeah, she says it's Jessica. So it was Jessica. She said, as far as I know, sharks are colorblind, meaning they only see certain colors better than others. Apparently, they prefer yellow and can't see red very well, but stand to be corrected with a smiley face. So I don't know if you can add to that.
Yeah, so most of the sharks are color blind, but they are so adapted to hunting in those conditions, they rather amplify the amount of light coming in. And remember, they perceive color differently than us. So what you see on land is not what you see under the water.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Okay. If there are no more questions.
There is one more. I think there's one more you could answer, Sandile, before we close off. I just seen one coming through now that how do sharks get rid of excess salt, if I read that correctly, or how do sharks remove excess salt? If I'm getting that.
Okay. From the water or from where? Cows? From themselves into the water. Ah, so metal accumulation in the body. So, okay, this one, I'll have to answer in email to get my facts correct. And then it's gonna go up into the Shark Attack website and also into the frequently asked question. Very good question.
I have one for the group. I know the answer, but I'm wondering if anyone else out there has ever wondered this and perhaps knows the answer. So most of you will know that a fish has a swim bladder and the function of the swim bladder. Does anyone know that sharks don't have swim bladders and what the alternative is, and potentially why that helps them in what makes how that separates them from fish, why that's important for them. I mean, obviously they're a little older than fish as well, so they adapted. Swim bladders came after the fact. What, you can unmute yourself if you want to have a go at answering, or put something in the chat box.
I think they're heavier, that's why.
I like that you're thinking, Rocco. It's potential. There's potential in that. Are all sharks heavy though?
Not really, but maybe they're still denser than water.
Still like it's
Which they
thinking. Anyone
are.
else got some answers? Okay, I see some answers here. Weight, liver. Tell me about the liver. Who said the liver? Hawaii P30. Rolf, you can answer. It's okay. I think the group would like to know the answer. Rolf, give us your answer. Okay, so Tyler's also answered. I'm going to read out what the group has said. So it's the liver, and the liver is an oily liver, all right? And it helps, the substance in the liver helps with the shark's buoyancy. But the advantage for a shark to have that is that they are top predators. Remember, as Sandile, I was almost called you Simone because that's the name next to you, shared with us. They are top predators, which means as a top predator, you don't want to take your time moving up and down the water column. You want to be able to move, and you want to be able to chase your prey. So you haven't got time for your swim bladder to adjust its your buoyancy and not blow up on you. So having an oily liver is a strong advantage for being able to move swiftly and fast through the water and remain a top predator.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, what would happen if a fish had an oily liver then? Won't the fish be able to then have a better chance of outrunning a shark?
Who asked me that? Rocco.
That's Walker.
Sure. Yeah, I imagine it would put it on a similar playing field, but you must also remember now there's more than one anatomy difference. So sharks also have cartilaginous bones, which are lighter.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean it would put it on in a more even playing field.
Also, do sharks ambush their predators or just charge? I mean, not predators, prey. Or do they just charge?
I think it's a very generalized question, that, because there's lots of different sharks. So I'm pretty sure they all have different tactics. Does anyone want to throw some answers to that in the chat box?
I know the thresher shark comes at schools at speed and whacks some fish with its long tail. Or, yeah, I think it's a thresher shark.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's great. So Sandile, maybe you can do put in the email to everyone, do some homework on different ambush attacks or predator attacks that different sharks display, and we can answer that question for the group.
Mm-hmm. And then I have another question, which asked if there's going to be a newsletter to advise on next webinars. That's from Kerry Mueller. So we will send out notifications in our accounts, Facebook account, in our Twitter and Instagram account. And then also, we will also send you guys an email. You guys an email of the presentations to come in the coming weeks as well. Yeah.
Great. I think we could.
Sorry,
we can close
Sandile.
the call off. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Hi. Thanks for the presentation. That was very informative. I just want to make a correction there, though. But not all sharks have to swim constantly, be moving through water to be able to breathe. Depends on shark species. So some sharks can go lie in a reef overhang and stay still, and they can still continue breathing because they're able to pump water over their gills themselves. So that's called buccal breathing. And you'll see what it looks like on the top of sharks, almost looks like an ear or something. That's called a spiracle. So they pump water through there as well. So it's not all shark species that have to, you know, keep moving through the water. It's a bit of a, I guess, misconception that most people have about that. Sorry, I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you very much for that. Yes, yes, Melanie. Thank you.
Okay, if there isn't anything else, I'd like to thank all of you for attending this webinar. Love learning from all of you, and this is such a great platform to do so. So thank you for setting aside time to be with us this afternoon. We will send out an email to all of you guys, just sharing the answers to some of the questions. And we look forward to seeing you the next time. Thanks so much, everyone. And thanks, Sandile, for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you, everyone.